Hey guys, we are live. I'm Jeff here with eBay Addicts, and today I got you guys a brand new guest. I have Good Game Grabs is here with us today. How are you doing today, bro?
Doing great, Jeff. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for joining us today. Today we're going to
Thanks
be
for having
talking
me.
all about eBay. We're going to be talking about antique booths. We're going to be talking about the Goodwill bins and everything else in between. So real quickly, in case people in our audience don't know who you are, tell them a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and tell them what it is that you do.
Well, first of all, I love talking about all of those things, so I'm very excited. My name is Ray. Some people call me Nabyar. My wife, her name is Zesty. Her real name is Emily. We are both Good Game Grabs, our YouTube channel. We resell. I resell full time. She resells part time. She basically runs the antique mall booth side of things. I run the eBay side of things. And yeah, we're both stationed in St. Louis. We've been reselling for about a couple years now, and yeah, it's been quite the wild ride.
For sure, man. Yeah, I've been a follower of your YouTube channel. All the links are down below if you guys want to go follow our guests on YouTube and Instagram. And your channel, man, and honestly, you kind of remind me a little bit of Chase after the right price. Have you seen his channel before? He goes out and
Yeah,
hunting video games. And
yeah.
you kind of remind me a little bit of him and a little bit of the Nashville Flippers. So that's kind
Okay.
of what your channel reminds me of. So I've seen you guys out there. And I think you dropped a video maybe last week or so talking about how you were addicted to sourcing media at the Goodwill bins and flipping it on eBay. And I was like, man, I've got to reach out to these guys and have them on because, I'm the same way, right? Before we went live, I was just posting some media on my eBay store. So talk
Yeah.
a little bit about kind of like how you guys got started into reselling because this is mainly your full-time gig now is reselling on eBay, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We were just talking off air about how I do a little bit of barbecue business on the side, as like a catering sort of gig. But yeah, no, reselling is my absolute 100% bread and butter. And yeah, I mean we basically started the channel under the guise of basically going after video games, not just media as in general, but really niching down on video games. And once we started hunting for video games and just kind of like thinking of the channel as like just like a hobby, like kind of whatever thing, it kind of opened me up to other channels that were doing the same thing, like Chase. And then I realized like, oh, I'm already out here like in the thick of it. Why don't I find out what these other things are worth, And so I started selling other things other than video games, like started selling some DVDs, some books, stuff like that, some music CDs or whatever. And then I was like, wait a minute, I could just quit my job and do this if I just, turn the gas on and here we are, So I quit my job maybe like 6 months later and I went full time and here we are.
So tell people a little bit about what was you doing? What was your full-time job before you transitioned into being a full-time reseller and what kind of pushed you over the edge and say, you know what? Here's my 2 weeks notice. I'm out of here. I'm going to be a reseller. I don't have to, put up with this crap anymore. So kind of tell people your story kind of behind the scenes of how that went.
Yeah, so I was in food service for 10 years, guys. 10 years. I basically started in food service when I was in college. I was delivering pizzas part time while I was in college. And after I graduated, got my degree, decided I didn't want to use my degree and just kept driving pizzas. Like it was a really good job for the amount of time that you put in, and it was pretty relaxed for the most part. And so yeah, I did that for 10 years and I went, man, I've done my penance. I've done my food service penance, and I decided to. Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, this was after I met my now wife, but when we met, it was during the pandemic. I had been coming up on like 9 years, 10 years in the business, and the stars kind of aligned to where I had more of a financial and emotional net to take the leap, which I'm super grateful for every day. And so that allowed me to more comfortably take the leap away from my full-time job into another full-time job, right? But I had also been like, sort of piecemeal on the amount of eBay stuff that I was doing even before I quit. So I mean, I still understood what to do. It just I didn't have the time to put the full amount of gas to it. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure, man. I've definitely been there before. I've actually done part time on Saturday, Sundays, delivered pizza at Papa John's in the past. So I definitely know what it's like coming home smelling like pizza and you get rained
Oh
on and
yeah.
smelling like a wet dog and you come home ready to get a shower and be like, man, why am I doing this to myself? So I've
Yep.
definitely been there before. Burning your hand on that 400-degree oven and you're like, man, I could be
Yep.
doing a lot of other things other than this. So I definitely have been there before. So man, I want to kind of
Yeah.
talk to you a little bit about reselling now. So you said, hey, I'm done with this whole pizza game. I'm ready to go in here and become a full-time reseller. And kind of like, how do you manage your time into that being like a full-time job? Because you're shooting content on your YouTube channel, you're posting stuff on eBay, you're out here sourcing, and then you still got to spend time with your wife and family and kind of have that balance. So how does that go for you?
It definitely is a balance. I've tried to regiment my days as much as I can. I just don't like it personally. I know a lot of other people out there, especially like if you're self-employed, having that like regimented, weekday, whatever, even a couple hours regimented out, like is very important for people. But like I feel like I sort of just go with the flow of my day. I mean, but most days I do tend to treat like just a normal 9 to 5 job. I'm up in the morning, I'm I'm doing my listings, I'm getting my packages done around noon. I take a break, I go to the post office and I go to one thrift store. That's usually the thrift store right by the post office because it's convenient, but it's at least one little micro bit of sourcing that I can do while I'm out. So it makes my time out of the house more efficient. And I really do like working towards efficiency. So yeah, I try to combine things as much as I can. But yeah, so I typically try to, at like basically my day goes listing, shipping, and then organization. Because I between the stuff that I bring in and my wife brings in, it can get out of hand really fast because we use our basement as our storage inventory area. So it can get out of control really easily. So I try my best to stay on top of that. And that's
Okay.
pretty much how my day goes. So, well, and
Okay.
that's of
Cool.
course, this is on a non-sourcing day, of course. So if it's a sourcing day, it goes however it goes. So
All right, cool. I want to give a quick shout out to Laura. Laura says, "Hey guys, great to see you. Hope you're feeling better. Thanks for the video. Hey, thanks for coming in and hanging out with us today. We're live, so if you guys in the chat want to ask our guest questions, you can drop it in the chat, and we'll get to the question. So I want to talk to you a little bit about reselling on eBay because I know like you're an everything seller, but you kind of niche down to selling a lot of media items. I've watched your videos where you're selling DVDs, Blu-rays, video games, VHS tapes. So why media items? Because I'm a big proponent of, I think I've probably been selling on eBay for at least 10 years, but I'm a big proponent of selling media. I prefer to like to sell stuff that's new in the shrink wrap. There's not a lot of cleaning. There's not a lot of testing to do. I just
yeah,
grab it, scan the barcode, take a picture front and back and post it, and I can crank out probably 100 of them in a day. And you
absolutely.
might think, well, that's not a very high ROI. And I would say, okay, I'm buying something for a quarter and I'm selling it for $20. So 10 of those a day, how much would that be? You know what I mean?
Right,
So that's
right.
kind of the way that I'm looking at it. I'm not trying to hit a $50 or $100 home run every time I sell something on eBay, but I'm looking
Sure.
at trying to sell a large multitude of items. So kind of what got you into kind of leaning towards selling the media items on your eBay store?
Well, especially lately, I've had this goal of mine to hit 1,000 listings this year, and the way to get there, at least for me, is to list items that are easy to list. I mean, to take pictures of. There's very little testing in media, so it's a quick 1-2 where I can just cruise through a listing versus like, I mean, typically, I kind of go in waves of like what I'm really after. Sometimes,
Yeah.
I'll be like, oh man, I'm really into clothes right now, or I'm really into hard goods, or I'm really into media, whatever that may be. But just for right now, for the purposes of growing my eBay store listing wise, it's been media for sure. Like you said, I mean, if even if it's 25 cents into $5 net profit, I'm taking that all day if I'm selling 15 to 20 of those a day, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? So that's how I look at it. Yeah, so that's
Well,
that's why
the
I
way I look at
gravitate
it is,
towards it.
let's say hypothetically let's say, okay, this just for illustration, let's say that you spent $5 on a big VCR that you got at Goodwill, okay, and let's say you could sell it for $50 on eBay. So your buy cost was $5 for the VCR. You're going home, you're cleaning it, you're testing it, you take a million photos, you post it online, and then you're having to box up this big old heavy unit into a box. You're putting all this foam and padding in there, and it ships out. Okay, so your $5 investment turned into $50. Whereas I could go and let's say hypothetically I bought media for 50 cents a piece. Okay, so my $5 investment, I bought these media items for 50 cents a piece. So with my $5, let's say I bought 10 items for 50 cents a piece, and I go home. They're all new in the shrink wrap. I go home, scan the barcodes, and post them. And let's say at a bare minimum they sell for $10 a piece. So my initial
Right.
$5 investment, if I sold those 10 media items for $10 a piece, my $5 investment turned into $100. Whereas Ray here may have bought his VCR that he bought at a yard sale for $5 and sold for 50, and he's over the moon that he turned $5 into 50. Whereas I'm kind of under the radar, and my $5 turned into 100,
Sure.
and it probably took me half the amount of time to source the items, list them, package them, and ship them versus what you did with a big heavy VCR from turning $5 into $50. I'm just telling you guys from my own personal experience of doing this stuff for 10 years. I'm not, whatever works for you works for you. But I'm just thinking, like, logically in your head, I could grab a whole stack of media like this, and I've got maybe a quarter, 50 cents invested into it. The stuff's new in the shrink
Right.
wrap. I don't get a lot of returns, and all I'm doing is put it in a little 6x9 padded envelope, put a shipping label on it, and drop it in the mailbox. So you
Absolutely.
just got to kind of look at it like that. And when you're out there at the Goodwill bins, man, I see you going through the bins, and you're like grabbing stuff left and right. You're like, here's a Blu-ray, here's a VHS tape, and you were selling video game manuals, all type of stuff. So, and I think
Oh
this is
yeah.
a category that a lot of people kind of sleep on this category, and they say, oh, that's an old CD or that's an old VHS tape. It doesn't have any value. Specifically, if you guys see something that's new in the shrink wrap and they quit making this 25, 30 years ago, and you got it new in the shrink wrap, they can't go to Walmart or Target or Best Buy to find this
Right.
item. The only place they can find it is eBay and Amazon. And you can kind of name
Right.
your price. So tell me a little bit about what your experience has been, specifically maybe in picking up some of these small niche items like VHS tapes or CDs that you find new in the shrink wrap in the wild. Tell us about that, because you're getting stuff
Yeah.
for pennies on the dollar and flipping it, and it's profit, right?
Yeah, it's been so huge that our local Goodwill bins has moved to 5 cent VHS, because before they were just
Right.
weighing them with general goods. So like I'm just looking for VHS like crazy now, even if it's just super common stuff that we can float, for $2 to $3 even in the booth, because even after they take their 10% at our antique mall booth, it's still money in the bank. I mean, at 5 cents, I mean, you can't beat that. But I mean, again, I mean, you find all these sealed VHS. Some are duds. Sometimes it is hard to sell a sealed VHS even for $5 to $7. But just the other day, I sold a sealed Dazed and Confused for 45. I think it was 45 or $50 free shipping, and like that for a 5 cent investment. I'm taking that all day, and people are overlooking that stuff all the time. When you go to the media section or our Goodwill bins, you'll see guys that only deal in vinyl, guys that only deal in video games, guys that only deal in DVDs and CDs. And I'm a big proponent of like, be humble and just always try to learn something about where you're at. Cause like, for the longest time I ran away from clothing. And now that I know more about clothing, I can go to a garage sale and be like, oh, I would have struck out here 6 months ago, but now I know to buy that pair of Levi's or whatever. And that goes along the same lines of like the media stuff. Like clothing is relatively easy to list, low returns. There's a lot of it. There's a ton of clothing out there. I mean, it can be the same turn and burn method of what you just described.
Yep.
It's a lot of low cost items. You might not sell it for a huge ROI. Well, it is a huge ROI, but it may not be a huge average sale price. But you're making a good ROI and you're making them quicker. You know.
Right. So tell people about some of the places that you like to go sourcing at. A lot of people like going to flea markets and yard sales, but you specifically like going to the Goodwill bin. Talk about the places you like to go sourcing at.
I mean, I'm very fortunate to live like 10 minutes away from a Goodwill bins, so it's super convenient for us to go there. And aside from that, though, I'm getting amped up for garage sale season. I don't know about you, but I feel like in the past 6 months, I've learned so much more outside of my niche of media that I feel really prepared this year to just be a sourcing monster and continuing in my venture of selling everything, really. So yeah.
I'm with you. So if someone has never been to the Goodwill bins, tell them what it is that they need to look out for, what to expect. Because when I watch you on your videos, you're like, I
Oh
got my gloves, like got your elbow
yeah,
pads, your helmet, you're like ready to
yeah.
go, right? So tell people like a
Well,
little bit about kind of behind the scenes, what's all involved. Go ahead.
yeah, no, I was just gonna say, well, I mean, it just varies so much from each part of the country, right? Like, there are the bins down in like San Antonio, Texas, which are like notorious for people being like super aggressive in for whatever reason. I don't know what's going on in San Antonio, but you know, for us in St. Louis, our bins are pretty chill for the most part. You're not gonna get a lot of like elbow rubbing, but we also don't rotate bins like a lot of other ones do. So, for example, we went down to Las Vegas. We hung out with Sunny Las Vegas. Shout out to him. And
Yeah.
Sunny took us to the bins, and it was super wild because they basically have a third of the size of a building that we do. So it's pretty small, but they block off half of it for a certain amount of time while they're putting in new bins. And then they make you stand behind a line, and then they say go, and everybody bull rushes the other side of the store to get to these new
Right.
bins that they just put out, and they cycle like every 30 minutes or so, every like hour or 30 minutes or something like that. So it was like they were chopping through it. So ours is different because it's open for 3 hours, it closes for a couple hours, and then it opens again for another 3 hours, and that's it for the day. So it's really important. I would say the first tip that I would say is well, of course, bring gloves because like stuff in there gets nasty.
Yeah.
B, get there early if your bins is not one that rotates out. Get there early and get a good spot in line so you can get fresh eyes on the merchandise right when right when you get in there. And yeah, try to have a good time. Be cordial. It's we're still human at the end of the day. Like, I've seen some pretty disgusting behavior at the bins. I mean, but
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Yeah, guys. So if you guys are not familiar, what we're talking about is the Goodwill Outlet bins. I'm sure if you Google it on your location, there's probably one within 30 minutes or an hour away from you. And basically, the Goodwill bins, instead of buying items for 5, 10, $15, a lot of these places, what you do is you go in there, you take your shopping cart in there, they weigh it while it's empty, and then when you come out, they charge you so much money per pound for the merchandise that you get. And you get stuff like you said, really cheap. You're getting VHS tapes for what, 5 cents a piece or something. Talk
Yeah.
about some of the prices you have at your local Goodwill bins.
Yeah, I totally forgot to mention that. I'm sorry, Jeff. So yeah, ours in particular, and again, it varies from location to location, but ours does $1.89 for general merchandise, and that includes clothing. So aside from that, though, glassware is I think 40 cents a piece or 50 cents a piece. Media with books and VHS. So books are 40 cents an inch and VHS is 5 cents an inch. And since of course, the vast majority of VHS is an inch, 5 cents of VHS, and then everything else in the media is by the pound. So, if you find your sealed DVDs, games, stuff like that, you're paying, about like a 4 to 5 ounce, poundage. So you're paying, around like 60 cents, 70 cents. So it's pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah, guys. So if you're out and about and you see stuff, especially stuff that's new in the shrink wrap, and you come across some VHS tapes, CDs, DVDs, Blu-rays, the reason why I specifically like this category, besides it being easy to list and easy to ship, if you have the basic store subscription, which is like $20 a month, eBay will give you 10,000 free listings in those select categories. Meaning that at the end of the 30 days, if your item doesn't sell, you don't have to pay listing fees, insertion fees in order to list those items. So you're getting stuff for pennies on the dollar. I mean, if you're getting something for 50 cents and you can sell it for $10, I mean, I would do that all day long, bro.
All
That's like
day.
a 20x rate of return on your initial investment, not counting your cost of goods or eBay fees. But I mean, I would do that all day,
Yeah,
especially if you could grab a stack of them and it takes you, I don't know, 15 minutes, 10 minutes to list 10, 15 items. I mean, you
sure.
can do it. So you just got
Yep.
to be out there. I definitely like looking out for audio books, CDs, DVDs, VHS tapes, video games, Blu-rays. I mean, you'll just come across stuff and you're getting stuff for pennies on the dollar, a quarter, 50 cents, 75 cents. And if you're not sure, just scan this barcode here and look it up. It tells you on eBay what the stuff's selling for before you get to the lane and check out. There's a lot of different opportunities. Ray was just talking about hitting up yard sales. So real quickly, I want to talk about what is your goal right now with your eBay store. I think you said that you're trying to hit 1,000 items. So I want to talk briefly about your reselling game on eBay, and then we're going to talk about your booth that you have as well.
Sure, yeah, I'd be happy to talk about the booth. But yeah, no, with the eBay store, I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing that I'm not at 1,000 listings. It's just that I would like to push myself to list more a day, if that makes sense. So like, that's the goal that will help me list more per day, right? Like, because I want to try to hit 1,000 listings. I mean, by the end of the year, but let's just be frank. Like, the way that I'm going right now, I'm gonna hit it way before the end of the year. But it's just good for me to like keep pouring the gas on and list more every day. But also, like, yeah, I mean, like you're saying, it's getting those items that are quicker and easier to ship, so I manage my time a bit better. And that's with media. Like, that's media for me. I'm the most
Right.
comfortable there, and I can find the most items and the quickest with media. So that's kind of why I'm just sticking in that lane right now. Once I hit 1,000, I'll probably still, I'm still listing clothing, of course. I'm still listing shoes, still listing electronics, games, like board games and stuff like that. But I mean, I'm
Yeah.
still listing that stuff, but I'm mainly staying in the lane of media right now. So yeah,
I'm with you. Let me say hello to people in the chat, guys. I'm not ignoring you. If you guys have questions for our guests, we're talking all about Goodwill bins, eBay, reselling, YouTube, antique booths. So if you have questions about those topics, drop it in the chat. Wanted to say hello to LKL Graphics Keith this year. Want to say hello to Nina J. I want to say hello to Flying High. Says good luck in 2023. And I want to say hi to Laura. If you guys are in the chat and you have questions for our guests, you can drop it in the chat. So I want to talk real briefly about your antique booth that you guys have. I had an antique booth back in the day. I used to have one of those glass cases, and it was like in one of those
sure,
like little knick-knack stores. And what I
sure,
did back in this a long time ago back in the day is I would go to the pawn shop and get video games like PS3, Xbox 360 video games for like $3 a piece. And then I would turn
yeah,
around and take them to my booth and sell them for 15, 20, $30 a piece. So that's what I used
smart,
to do is flip them in this booth. Well, the
yeah,
problem was is that where we had this antique booth was kind of out of the way. So we had some foot traffic and we were
sure,
generating sales. But the problem is the money that we generated in sales from our booth was just enough money to cover our booth fee every month. And then by the
yeah,
time I added in my gas and paying for drinks and snacks and driving there and out, it just wasn't worth my time. But there are a lot of people that make $1,000, $2,000 a month with their antique booth, and it kind of runs on autopilot because they think about it. If you were going to open up your own brick and mortar location somewhere, you had to hire employees. You had to pay for water, electric. You had to pay for your booth space and all that. I mean,
insurance,
there's a lot of stuff
yeah.
that goes into it. So let's talk a little bit about how much do they charge you for your booth? What's the size and the dimensions, and what would you say is your average profit that you make per month from your booth, and what kind of items do you sell?
Yeah, so we have an 8x10. We were really fortunate to get a really good location where we are right now, because we were actually at a building just down the street, and then they sold the company to somebody that already had a booth in the existing building. So they took over and moved us down the street, and honestly, it was like the best thing. It was the best thing. The new owners, I'm super grateful because they are super proactive about advertising for the booth and like making sure other people are trying to stay on top of like getting the word of mouth out there about the booth, or about the mall rather, not the booth. But yeah, so we're an 8x10. We pay $200 a month. So again, like if you factor in the price of a brick and mortar, I'd say that's a pretty fair price for the amount of space that we have. But like anything else in reselling, you get what you put into it. It's just like eBay listings. If you're not listing consistently, every day or almost every day, you're not going to make sales, right? So, there were
Right.
times where we really neglected the booth because I was caught up in, eBay and making content. And then, my wife wasn't going there because she's wrapped up in her job, which she works a corporate, 40, 50 hour a week job. So, there's
Right.
all these other factors that play into it. But now this last couple months, we've had a little bit of help from Emily's parents who are now retired, and they're like, "Hey, can we come help you guys?" Like, we're like, "Sure, like you can hang out at the booth and throw some stock in," which
Yeah.
we're super grateful for that. So, free labor, hey, well, pretty awesome. But we've also really been on top of, sourcing stuff, well, not sourcing stuff, but the stuff that we have sourced, getting it priced and cleaned, ready for the booth. We have a thermal printer at home now, which like we can print the tags that are appropriate for items. So like we can clean, we can put it in the system. We can do all that stuff from home, tag it and all that stuff. So
Right.
now all we have to do is, even though our booth is literally across the town, like, I mean, it is as far across the town as you can get pretty much. But we have everything to go now. So like we'll take two IKEA bags full or whatever it may be. It's all priced. It's all clean. We just literally go there. We put it on the shelf, and that's it. We don't have to do anything else.
Yep.
Makes the process super
So,
simple. But yeah,
so guys, the reason why I'm bringing this up because a lot of you guys, or maybe you're eBay resellers, and maybe you have a storage unit somewhere and you're already paying $100, $200 a month for a storage unit, right? Now, all the items that you're sitting in your storage unit, there's zero chance that any of these items are going to sell out of your storage unit. So if you could comparably say, hey, you know what? Maybe if instead of paying that $200 a month for that storage unit, what if I had an antique booth and I could put stock in this antique booth for the same amount of money you're paying for the storage unit, and maybe you could start generating some sales. At least maybe you can break even. So that extra $100, $200 a month you were paying for a storage unit, maybe that $100, $200 a month you could use kind of as your antique booth to help kind of funnel some products, especially stuff that's kind of big, bulky, and heavy stuff. Maybe you don't want to
yep,
sell on eBay. Maybe you have $5, $6, $7, $8 items that maybe it's not worth your time listing on eBay. You could go drop it in your booth. So in your experience, I know it's going to vary depending on town to town, but in your experience where you live at, how much money do you guys make a month from your antique booth? Are you comfortable sharing that or giving us like a ballpark
oh yeah,
figure?
no, yeah, absolutely. So again, it really depends how much you put into it. So there have been months where we put the minimal effort into it and we basically break even after the price of the rent of the booth, $200 a month, and then the cost of goods. We're basically breaking even. Like if we get a $60, $70 check at the end of the day, I mean, that's pretty much our cost of goods right there for what we sold. So, it's again, what you put into it, but like in December, well, of course in December's always good. December we did like a $400 net month, and then just this last month we did another $400 net month. So, I mean, and that's again, it not a huge amount of work, but it is a lot of stuff that we're just like, yeah, I don't want to put this on eBay. It's a all these like $3 to $7, $8 items that we don't really want to take the time to put on eBay. We put it in the booth and it still flies like hotcakes.
Yeah. So just something you guys can consider. I'm not going to tell you that you guarantee you that you're going to make a profit, but what I am saying is that maybe if you could, maybe shut down a storage unit and maybe have it a booth and put stuff in your booth every month. Worst case scenario, you're probably going to break even. And then after you do it for a while, you're going to get better at it and maybe you make a profit. It wouldn't hurt to have an extra $500 check at the end of the month. And it kind of
Yeah.
runs on autopilot. A lot of these places are open 7 days a week. That has, air conditioning, water, electric, heat, all that stuff involved. And they have people that run cashiers and run debit and credit cards for you 7 days a week. So I definitely like the concept. So I want to kind of switch gears here and talk about eBay. What would be your top 3 tips or piece of advice to help someone out? Whether they're a part-time seller or full-time seller, maybe they're getting started on eBay, maybe they're on the fence. What will be your top 3 pieces of advice to kind of help someone kick their eBay store into gear if this is something that they were interested in? Maybe they already have a full-time job like your wife and they're looking at maybe making some extra income on the side. Well, what advice would you have for them?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I'd say the first thing is be humble about what you know and what avenue you're in. There's always a chance to make money, whatever situation you're in, right? Whether that be at a flea market, at a garage sale, your buddy's house, that's like wanting to move a collection or whatever that may be. Just be humble about the many different avenues of reselling. Because I used to shy away so much from like I will never do clothing sort of attitude. And now that I've opened myself up to that, I can make more money. I mean, but I do also understand why people niche down and stay in their lane, because that's like they just want to maximize that as much as possible, and that's their prerogative. There's nothing wrong with it. But if you're at a garage sale and you're hunting for video games and they don't have any video games, but they do have other stuff that's worth money, you might be potentially be leaving money on the table. So that's
Right.
where I'm at with that. The second thing would just be, I mean, this is probably a horse that's been beaten to death many times, but stay consistent, as consistent as you possibly can be. I mean, Jeff was saying like you have all these other things going on in your life. Let's just call it life, right? Like your family, your friends, your kids, your other extracurriculars. Like, of course, those are all going to factor in there, but treat it like a job. Treat it like any other job. Stay consistent. Be good in your customer service, all that good stuff. And then yeah, and then I guess the third thing is, if you are a new reseller, focus on items that have high sell-through rate, because you want to get your feet wet with the process of selling things on eBay as quick as possible. You want to get those interactions and those transactions going as quickly as possible, so you can learn quicker. So high sell-through rate items, get those going. Even if it's a $5 net profit, get those high sell-through items. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree what you're saying about, if you're out looking for specific items, like I shop a lot at pawn shops, and they'll have clearance items. Maybe they're have video games for 50 cents or $1 a piece, and I get there, maybe the clearance rack is cleared out already. And while I'm there,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, they happen to have new DVDs or Blu-rays for 50 cents a piece, new in the shrink wrap. I'm already spent my time and gas money to drive there. So I just
Yep.
grab a stack of them, put them on the counter and go. In worst case
Yeah.
scenario, if item gets lost in the mail or something crazy happens, I'm out 50 cents, $1. It's not a big deal. So just look
Right.
for items where you don't need a lot of capital to get started. You can get stuff at yard sales, pawn shops, thrift stores, Goodwill bins, all over for stuff for quarter, 50 cents, $1. You don't have to have a lot of money tied up in the items, and then take that capital and kind of flip it and reinvest it. And over time, your eBay store will grow. And if you want to one day to be a full-time reseller, you can. I don't like the idea of being a full-time reseller, because I feel like if I have a bad month in sales, I still have to eat. I still have to pay my rent. I still have to pay my cell phone bill, car insurance, groceries. I
Yeah.
can't call the company and say, hey, I had a bad month in sales on eBay this month. Maybe I don't have to pay my cell phone bill this month. Like, you still got life going on. So anyways,
Yeah.
let's talk real briefly about your YouTube channel. What people haven't gone by to check you out yet, tell them a little bit about what kind of content you make on your channel.
Yeah, so I mean, it's basically it kind of centers on a vlog style channel. I know a lot of other reselling channels do sort of like only basically put forth just educational material. We try to incorporate like our personalities and our lives, even sometimes outside of reselling, in our channel. So that's kind of how we like to do it. We like to sort of encompass like educational stuff, are the vlogness of like our life, and the person, then the personal view, the POV of being a reseller, and just basically try to encompass all of that into one thing and not just be only one. We try to give everything, a little bit of entertainment, a little bit of education, a little bit of brass tacks as to what reselling really looks like, and that's it. So yeah, but we try to drop videos 2 times a week. We just recently put out a Sunday school series where we basically walk you through starting reselling from ground zero, and kind of guide you to your first eBay sale and beyond. And yeah, and then of course, we try to get some booth content in there. It usually is sprinkled in whenever Zesty has time to do it. And yeah, so it's a good time.
All right. Cool. So briefly, tell people a little bit about what your plans are for the future. Do you have any other goals or any plans, anything on the back burner that you're working on this year for 2023 that you have coming up that maybe you haven't told anybody about yet, or you're kind of thinking of?
No, not particularly. I honestly, I want to network more with other resellers, not just, of course, I love that you invited me on to this podcast here. I do really appreciate it. It's great to network with other resellers and pick their brains and learn from them. But also just to go and meet other resellers. Like I think that Zesty and I are going to try to go to one of the reselling cons this year, just to really meet other resellers and vibe with them and learn and hang out.
Yeah, that'll be fun. So tell everybody where they can find you at on YouTube and Instagram. They want to come by and check you out, or want to come by and say hi, or want to come subscribe to your YouTube channel. Tell them where they can find you at.
Yeah, absolutely. It's at Good Game Grabs. It's the same thing on Instagram, pretty much on all platforms. I don't think there's any other platform that has anything different aside from Good Game Grabs. Come check us out. Come drop us a sub and hit that like button.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been a subscriber of our guest for at least a year now. So I have his links down below in the description for YouTube and Instagram. Go by and check them out. They're pretty active in the reseller community and also dropping YouTube videos. Go by and check them out. Give them a subscribe. And so I'll leave it up to you. Do you have any final closing remarks that you can leave our audience with? And then we'll let you go, buddy.
No, yeah. Again, thank you so much for having me on. I really do appreciate it. Thank you again for following our content, and we hope to do the same for you and everything else. And so I hope everybody can learn a little bit of something from either of us, and have fun, make that cash going forward.
All right, guys. Well, we'll catch you guys on the next video. If you want to follow our guests, all the links are going to be down below in the description below for YouTube and Instagram. Until next time, we'll see you guys later. You guys have a great day. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.